Hey, I am so excited to teach you guys this important part of music, and it has to do with the actual pitch and determining steps and majors and minors. And I think this is something that if I teach you the basics, you can go so much further. And so today you need to have this worksheet. You need to have this because that's what I'm going to go through in addition to this worksheet. If you have a piano keyboard or you want to use the virtual keyboard, that's fine too. But this will, I want you to be able to write notes on it. So those are things that you can use, okay? And you won't learn everything today. I'm going to kind of break it up week by week, but I just want you guys to be able to have something that, like I said, that you can build on. All right, so let's go to this lovely keyboard diagram. And if you remember from long ago, we discussed that obviously the music alphabet is composed of what letters? I heard you. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What do we do when we get to the letter G? Right, we just go back and repeat it again, and it goes all the way from the low notes all the way to the high notes. So we talked about when this was first semester, we talked about that when you're looking at a keyboard, a piano keyboard, C is always to the left of two black keys. So looking at this diagram, where would C be on this diagram? Find the two black keys and go to the left. So C, the pitch of C would be right here. But Mrs. Randlett, it's also here. That is correct, because this is simply a higher pitched C. The further right you move, the higher the pitch. The further left you move, the lower the pitch on the keyboard. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So if this is C, what would this one be? D, E, F, G, A, B, we're back to C. And of course it's to the left of two black keys. So very good. You did great on that part. Okay, now here's where you need to have this sheet because I'm going to talk you through this. Okay, it's very important. Now, we discussed major scales and minor scales, just very briefly, and we talked about how major scales sound happy. La 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 la. That's a major scale. Ooh, but minor scales sound sad. La 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 la. That's a minor scale. All right, so those scales moving up on the pitch are made up of intervals. Intervals are the spaces between different pitches, okay? Now, what I need you to do is I need you to get out this, we're going to go back to the keyboard now, okay? But I'm going to be talking through this, all right? So just keeping you in the loop, making sure you know where I am, all right? Okay, so here we go. A scale can start on any note, all right? It can start on any note. It can start on F, it can start on A, it can start on C, it can start on any note. The notes form the scales by making a pattern. Ooh, I just love patterns. The space between any two notes is an interval. Keep that in mind. The space between any two notes is an interval, and that's what we use to form a specific pattern. Intervals that are needed to make a major scale are whole steps and half steps. Now this is where it gets exciting, okay? A half step is two notes that are right beside each other. They're next door neighbors. Now, here's where I need you to pay attention. We're going to start using these black keys. These are neighbors. These are next door neighbors. This would be considered a half step. See, a half step up is this note right here. Two white keys can be half step neighbors. These would be next door neighbors. That would be one half step because they're next to each other. However, these two keys would not be next door neighbors. Why? Exactly, because there's someone in between. They're not next door neighbors. These two are next door neighbors. These two are next door neighbors. But these two are not next door neighbors. Okay? So a half step is two notes that are next door neighbors. These notes are next to each other on a piano. Two white keys or a white key and a black key can be this, but never, ever two black keys. Look, it makes sense because no two black keys are directly next to each other. There's always a white key, at least a white key separating them. All right? All right. Now, so we know that a half step is the next door neighbor. I want you to hear on this keyboard. This is a virtual keyboard. If you don't have one, I encourage you use this. So this would be a next door neighbor. Do you hear the sound? I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Sorry, forgot that. That is a half step. This is a half step as well. That is a half step. What is this? It's a half step. All right. Now, you can find a half step by looking at the top of the piano keys, not this part of the piano. Look at the top part of the piano keys, not the bottom. All right. Now, a whole step is two half steps. That makes sense. Two halves make a whole. So if I were looking at our keyboard, a half step would be here, and this would be another half step. So the space between this pitch and this pitch is a whole step. Listen. That's the half. That's the whole. So the whole step, let me make sure I say this correctly because I don't want to confuse you. The keys that are right next to each other up at the top are known as next door neighbors, and those are your half steps. To find a whole step, you're going to have to go two half steps. But Mrs. Randlett, what about these fellas? I wonder, is that a half step or is that a whole step? Why don't you email me when you give me your answer, when you turn in your homework, and tell me what is the space between an E and an F pitch? Is that a half step or is that a whole step? Let me know what you think. All right. So let's go back to the recording, and I'm just going to talk you through this really quick. So again, this is something that next week we're going to talk about what makes a major chord, what patterns are used to make a major chord, and so I'm really excited about that. But you need to be sure that you understand what a whole step is and what a half step is. All right. So on this worksheet, I know it's simple, but I need you to understand this material. Okay. So right underneath here, and I'm going to actually, these will have numbers on them because I know it's hard to do sometimes when you have to email work to me and you're like, go left or right. I want to make sure you know that. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the example and you're going to determine, is that a next door neighbor? Because next door neighbors are half steps. Or is it a whole step? Is it two halves that make a whole? All right. Now, again, this is setting a foundation. Sometimes it's hard to wade through the tough stuff, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. So I hope that this makes sense to you. And if you have any questions, I am happy to help you. Again, using the virtual keyboard, that is really helpful. Let me go back to the virtual keyboard so you can see it. That might help you because you can hear the difference in the pitches too. So I'll include all those links and everything for you, but most of all, I just want you to try. Just give it a try. Have a good day.